Hello and welcome to Season 2 of Showmakers. Thanks to everyone listening, we're able to do a second 5-episode run of Showmakers, and in this debut episode, we'll be chatting with Jake Roper, who you may know from a small channel called Vsauce, or seen him in Casey Neistat's recent vlogs, as he has taken a second job as head of production for Beme. Jake, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
So, Brian doesn't want me to ask this, but we tried this with Dustin Sandlin in episode 2. And he completely just turned the question right around on me and made me answer questions, which I hated. But we want like a, 4 to 5 minute rundown of your life up until what? Now? Just like, just tell us what happened to have you doing YouTube videos as your full-time job.
Wow. Okay. So good question. I'm just going to try and think about how I can make it as concise as humanly possible. So what led up to making YouTube videos is I've always just wanted to make things. And I think the only thing I was kind of okay at was making videos. I wasn't very good at painting or doing animation. But videos I wasn't terrible at, and I didn't embarrass myself too much. So I started doing that. I went to school for film and video, which is what I majored in. I minored in psychology because I just thought the human mind was interesting. And I really wanted to be a director. So I worked in advertising and TV production and making music videos for a while. From basically about graduation until I was 24, 25. And then after that, I actually got a job at Google, working at this new division they had just started called the YouTube Next Lab. So I started working there, and I was running a channel that they operated called Space Lab, which, as the title suggests, was all about space and science. And I did that for about a year and a half. And in doing that, I met Michael Stevens from Vsauce 1 and Kevin Lieber from Vsauce 2, because they both also worked at Google. So we became friends, and after a while, I just got really into Vsauce, and I started editing some videos for Michael. And after a while, we just had this discussion about maybe we should create another Vsauce channel that would be mine to operate and produce. So we did that. I gave Space Lab to Scientific American, and then just started doing Vsauce 3 full-time in 2012, and that was really when YouTube became a full-time job. We all still worked at Google, but we also did Vsauce.
And we were talking with Ren last week, and he said that, so Vsauce was essentially owned by Google or something until recently?
Yeah, so Vsauce was, the reason the Next Lab, the YouTube Next Lab existed is that there was a MCN, it was one of the first multi-channel networks called Next New Networks. And it had a few channels that were just part of their network. And during the acquisition, part of the deal was that some of the channels came on board as lab channels, they called them, where YouTube could use us to test new features, new products, work with engineers, and just talk to YouTube employees as a whole to understand the platform better. And that was kind of our job. We got complete autonomy to do anything we wanted. They never had any say in our content. Our role was really just, cool, hey, this new feature called annotations is launching. Do you guys want to test it out? Because the freedom that we had and the thing that allowed us to try new things is that we could fail at doing it, and it didn't impact our business because YouTube was kind of our job. And since we were owned by Google, we could experiment and fail and not have horrible repercussions besides just our own egos and our own sense of worth. So that was the plan. And then we got ownership of Vsauce again in January of 2016, and now we're an independent company.
Were there many other channels involved with that program, or was it just Vsauce?
So there was the 3 Vsauces. There was another channel called Barely Political, which is now Key of Awesome, and Threadbanger were the channels that were kept during the acquisition.
Yeah, those are pretty big names.
Yeah. I found that really interesting when Red said that in the last podcast. I had no idea that was a program within Google. And it's really cool that they would just hand it back to you with no terms or conditions.
Yes, it is. And I think part of it was that, obviously I'm biased because I worked at Google for 5 years, but they really, and it sometimes seems like they don't, but they really do care about the creator community. And in our eyes, this was a step to allow us to grow even larger. We could do things that we couldn't really under the umbrella of Google. There were certain things that they didn't particularly have in their scope of products. Like, for example, we have, a subscription box called the Curiosity Box. That wasn't really of interest to them because they're not in that business. They're in the video platform business and in the search business. So there was things that were a little bit limiting in terms of how we could grow the brand outside of just a YouTube channel. And they understood that, and they were very supportive of us going after those ideas, because if anything, it benefits them because we still talk to them, about new products and new services and give them advice on what we see as creators in this wheelhouse. And I think the more we can do, the better we can then provide information for them.
I recently started getting my accounts in order for my real engineering income and expenses, and it has been a bit of a nightmare trying to backtrack everything. But this week's sponsor created the perfect software to rid yourself of this kind of stress. FreshBooks is a ridiculously easy to use online accounting software designed to help creative entrepreneurs get organized, save time, and get paid faster, giving you more time to do what really makes your money. FreshBooks allows you to quickly create and send invoices in about 30 seconds. There's no formulas or formatting, just perfectly crafted invoices every time. Your clients can pay you online, which often means you end up getting paid a lot faster. If a client forgets to pay you, FreshBooks will handle the awkwardness with customizable late payment reminders. But the biggest selling point for me was their expense tracking. Their mobile app lets you take pictures of your receipts, and FreshBooks organizes them for later. FreshBooks can even automatically import expenses directly from your bank account. So next time you use your debit card for that business lunch, watch the transaction magically appear in your FreshBooks account without worrying about losing that receipt. All of this information is kept in one place, so when it comes to keeping track of your finances and paying taxes, everything is organized and easy to find. To claim your free month, go to freshbooks.com/showmakers and enter Showmakers into the How Did You Hear About Us section when you sign up. It will help the show immensely and make sure that we're coming back for season 3. Yeah, it's great that you have that like kind of inside foot into Google, that you can work directly with them as well. It's valuable for all the rest of the creators on the platform as well. With the Curiosity Box, how's that going? That's a very broad question, but do you have any like interesting insights on the business of launching a subscription box?
I mean, it took a while. We spent about 2 years just experimenting. One year, I believe it was 2014, we launched a holiday box. 2015, we launched a holiday box. So it was just one box a year. Kind of to gauge the landscape. Are people interested in this? Is it something that people actually enjoy? Because for us, it's more of, and we all feel this way, and I always think about it, videos are very passive. It's a passive experience, and once the video ends, the experience is over. It's not something that you can really share outside of the social aspect of sharing, but it's not something that you can physically interact with. It's not tangible. So for us, the Curiosity Box came out of the idea of how do we create something that you as an individual can physically touch and physically share with others and make it more of an actual science experience and not just a viewer experience. And so in that regards, to answer your question, it's doing well, I believe. I mean, I think that people really enjoy it. I love watching unboxing videos and people post on Instagram like themselves or their families playing with the experiments or just playing with the little physics toys that we include. So I don't know. I think on any metric, if it was, selling one box or selling 1 million boxes, it's a success to me because it's getting people interested more fully in science and in curiosity, which is success in my mind.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's always great to see actual product in people's hands as well. I myself and Sam are both with DFTBA. I mean, we've sold only a couple, like I think maybe 30, 32 t-shirts, but
double digits.
I'm delighted. Yeah, I'm delighted with that. It's cool to see an actual physical product because like you said, YouTube is a bit of a intangible thing.
Well, I think it's nice, like just someone has your t-shirt, someone's wearing that around.
I'm wearing it around right now. Fun fact.
The comfortable
Brian's
t-shirt
shirt is insanely comfortable. I highly recommend it. Yeah,
very, very
more
soft.
comfortable than mine for some reason. Go buy our t-shirts. So Vsauce, well, all the Vsauce channels have they're definitely on the quality over quantity side of the spectrum. What sort of kind of production time do you have for? Obviously, it varies a lot depending on the video, but what sort of production time does it take to make a Vsauce 3 video?
It takes, on average, if we had to kind of average it together, it's about a month. Most of the time is spent researching and writing. That's about 3 weeks. And then a day to film, and then about a week to edit and do the graphics and everything for. Because we're still relatively small. I mean, Michael on Vsauce 1, he writes, hosts, and edits every episode. Same thing with Kevin, same thing with myself. We have an employee that does graphics for us and will help film, but that's about it when it comes to the Vsauce channels.
That's pretty insane for channels of your guys' size.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that we do, and we're fortunate enough, I mean, this Curiosity Box is a very integral part of allowing us the freedom of making content less frequently and focusing on how well we can make it, not can we just make it. So we're in a very lucky situation where we have these other revenue streams in place to allow us just to make the best possible content we can. And I think a lot of it comes from, and as you guys know, just from being creators, the things that you make are a representation of yourself, and you want them to be as good as possible. And this is a thing that I've been thinking about a lot recently, especially over the last year or so, where I want the things that I create they're going to live on longer than I do, is the idea that I have in my mind. So I want them to be as good as a representation of the way I feel, the way I think, as they possibly can, because it's a piece of you that you're leaving behind.
Absolutely, yeah. I remember there was I wouldn't call it an incident, but you were about to release a video, and I think it was Minute Physics and I always say CGP Grey.
Yeah.
Did I get it right that time, Sam?
Yeah, you got it right. Good job.
Yes. You had the same subject video, but you were concerned that for some reason that would kind of take away from the quality of the video. Am I right in saying that?
That is correct. And I think so there was a little bit of special circumstances during that, which is it was the first video that I had made in a little over 3 months, because I had, the prior 3 months I had been diagnosed with cancer and had surgery and had radiation treatment, all these things. And so it was like my first video back. And I think, you spend so much time with something that it really becomes a part of you. And I was just very nervous and scared that I've been working on this thing for so long, and if I release it now, will it not be as impactful? Because Gray just made a video literally the day before. So I emailed him because I was just concerned, and I didn't want him to think that I was cribbing on what he had created. And he made a very nice video response to my email, just being like, it's okay, just do it, man. And the response from the audience was very nice. And then it was interesting, because a week later, Minute Physics made a video on a similar topic. And I don't know why. Actually, I was talking to somebody the other day. I wish I could remember who. But they were saying how they had a video on a similar topic, and once mine came out, they ended up deleting their script. And it's just this interesting kind of parallel creation that happens. That's unavoidable, and it's not done in a nefarious or a mean way. It just happens sometimes. I don't know why, but it happens frequently, and I just don't like... I'm just nervous sometimes that people will see it, because a lot of times people don't understand how long it takes to make a piece of content. Mm-hmm. So if, 2 days later I make a video that was similar to Gray's or similar to whomever, people will be like, oh, you're just copying them. And it's like, well, no, I've been working on this for months. It's just that it so happened to coincide with a similar topic.
I don't want to be complaining about being a large or medium to large YouTuber, but one of the things I didn't consider is how there's really no room to kind of, once a video's been made on a topic, you kind of can't really go and make the same, a similar video again. And you can get away with that as a smaller YouTuber because you're putting your take on it and not many people see it. But I would never consider, there are a couple of videos that I realized actually recently that one of my videos was a complete ripoff of a Vsauce 1 video. I just hadn't realized, but I searched in the comments. But anyway, you can't really get away with doing or repeating other videos. And I feel like now, there are videos that Brian has said he wants to do that I can't do because I know that they're in the tunnel.
See, I don't believe in this at all. We've already done so many videos that touch on such similar topics, but we both have our own unique take on that topic. We're never going to do it exactly the same. And people aren't watching your videos because... Well, they are watching it because of the information in the videos and the topics, but they're watching it because they like your take on that information. I don't really buy into that. There's once or twice when I see you uploading a video and I'm like, damn, I wanted to do that subject. And then I watch it and it's like, well, I would have done this completely differently, not in a bad way. So I don't believe in that. I think that if anything, that situation with you, Jake, proved that I think it almost elevates it, seeing three different people's take on the same subject.
And I mean, I've always been on the mindset with the Gray thing. I was just, when I started watching it, I was like, okay, he's talking about it a little bit differently, so I wonder if it's okay. And I think you're right. Brian, that with content, it is a lot about the way that it's phrased and the topic that you're discussing and how you're discussing it. It can be a similar topic, but you're going to have a different viewpoint. You might have different sources for the information that you're providing. And there's no real reason to ever limit the amount of information that people can have access to. So are you going to be called out sometimes by people that maybe don't understand or don't appreciate? Yes. However, not everyone that watches your video is going to be the person who watched Gray's video or watched the Vsauce 1 video. There's going to be different people there. For them, it's going to be their first time ever hearing this. So it's kind of weighing that yourself. And I think you need to think as a creator, am I adding something unique? Am I adding context that wasn't there before to make it special and make it something that's wholly mine, even if it is a topic that might have been covered in some fashion by somebody else? Mm-hmm. Everything that we create is not new. I don't think that you can say that anything you've made hasn't been made before in some medium by somebody else. And it's owning that. Like, one thing I do whenever I make a video is I never look to see if there's another video like it, because I don't care, really. I don't want that to inform what I'm creating. I want mine to be totally mine and different, hopefully, than what had come before. And by limiting myself of what has come before, it makes me feel, and it could be totally an emotional response, but it makes me feel that what I'm making is different and unique.
I think that's exactly, that's how I feel about it. And if anything, seeing other people make a video makes me feel like my take is unique, like you said.
Like, what I will do if I do find that there is another video that covers a topic or a similar topic to mine, is I'll just say that in the video. You know, I'll be like, and if you want to know more about this creator made it, there's a link down in the description, and then I move on. So I have addressed the fact that maybe something similar exists, but I'm using it as, hey, here's another resource that you, the viewer, can go check out, and maybe you'll find out about somebody new.
And that's the great thing about YouTube as well. It's this whole kind of symbiotic ecosystem. I was doing this business plan I was nominated for the Young Entrepreneur of the Year in Ireland last year, and they wanted me to do a section on competitors. And one of the main things I kind of said in there is, like, I don't believe competitors really exist on YouTube. I think, if anything, they help each other. Even if you're doing like really similar videos, I think their videos are going to be suggesting yours, your videos are going to be suggesting them. I don't think you're going to put someone out of business for making similar videos.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, there's not enough supply of videos to really do that.
Huh?
No, and just the audience is so varied on YouTube where, you know, someone could be watching one of your guys' channels and they have no idea that I exist, and vice versa. And I agree with you that I don't ever see anyone on YouTube as competition. It is, and it sounds cheesy, but it's a community. The better one person does, the better everyone does. The more eyes we can get on the platform, as you said, like, the more you'll see that person's video maybe and recommended. You'll discover new people. So I don't ever take it as, oh, we're competing. And I find that, especially, obviously, I don't know the other verticals as well, but in the education space, I find that everyone is really appreciative and thoughtful and considerate of other creators' content and ways that they can work together, or ways that they can just promote them, which I love. And it really just brings up the whole mentality of collaboration, which is so important because, as I said previously, there's people who don't know that I exist, but they know that you exist. Or they don't know, like, they could be watching Vsauce 1, but they don't know there's a Vsauce 3. Like, I think working together is just always better for the greater good. And it helps everyone on the platform the more people you get onto YouTube.
Absolutely, yeah.
I think that's so true that the educational space, it seems like it seems like we all have that we're all in this together mentality, partially because it really is kind of a small genre. And also, like, I heard recently that, for example, the whole unboxing / tech review space, there's a little contention in that space, and a lot of the bigger players don't love each other. But in the education space, I'd say no. Most of the people with medium-sized channels doing similar stuff I've talked to on Skype, I know, and I don't dislike anyone. Everyone's great, because I don't think in a lot of the other verticals, I don't think everyone recognizes what you just said in the lack of competitiveness.
Well, I think we're an interesting vertical where I don't believe that the thirst for knowledge will ever. Let me rephrase. I think the thirst for knowledge will always exceed our ability to satiate it.
Absolutely, and there's no amount of like there's always going to be more to learn. There's always something new coming out. Especially like that's one of the things I know I'm never going to run out of content to make, because if Elon Musk is still on this planet, I'm still going to have videos to make.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
When are you making that boring video?
I just got an email from my friend who has a PhD in soil mechanics with 3 books on like exactly what I need: boring technology, soil mechanics, and a paper on the dangers of like boring in urban neighborhoods, like because soil tends to shift while they're boring. But yeah, it's like a boring. I think it's cool. It's not a boring subject at all.
But yeah, I would click on a video titled "A Boring Video." I'd be like, "Huh, sounds like a challenge."
I think
that's a very that kind of title is the very Vsauce style, especially Michael Stevens style.
Totally.
So I can see why you might think that. This episode of Showmakers was made possible by Fracture. Fracture prints your photos directly onto glass to create great gifts or keepsakes. Their printing process makes the images really stand out when printed on the sleek, frameless glass design. Every Fracture print you purchase comes with a 60-day happiness guarantee, so you know for certain you're getting something you like. You can get your beautiful Fracture print with 10% off over at fractureme.com/podcast. Once again, that's fractureme.com/podcast, and then you select Showmakers from the 1-question survey.
So at the moment, you are between LA and New York, right?
Yeah.
And so you've one office. We spoke with Ren about this last week. You've an office on the same street. He can see your cars down the street from his, which is cool. I love that idea of having that community close by. But can we talk about what you're working at the moment? I saw on Twitter that you have something planned for release tomorrow. Is that something to do with Beme or?
So that has nothing to do with Beme or Vsauce. That's actually another. I decided that having 3 jobs was a really good idea. So I have Vsauce in LA. I have Beme here in New York, where I currently am, and then the thing that launches tomorrow is I'm doing a new series with MTV that'll launch tomorrow.
Cool.
So that's what that is, and it's basically just short form science videos that basically they're a minute long and they play as commercials on MTV, the television channel. So yeah, I'm pretty stoked because like when I was a kid, who didn't have a dream of being like a VJ on MTV or something like that? I just love the fact that they're interested in allowing informational content on something like MTV. It was just a very nice surprise, and I was happy that they were so intrigued and engaged by that concept.
And did you bring that to them, or did you bring it to them? I mean, yeah.
You just said the same.
Yeah. No, did you? It's 6 a.m.
They actually had reached out to me, and they were like, "Hey, we're interested in making these little commercials for movies that are coming out, and we think that science is something that would be really interesting to focus on, and you seem to do that a lot with movies anyway." And I was like, "Yeah, I'd love to." And we just kind of discussed ideas and how the shows should look. And they were really excited about it. And so we filmed the first one a few weeks ago. That comes out tomorrow. And then if it does well, we'll continue to make them more frequently.
That's really cool.
So obviously you have more experience and kind of higher production value, higher budget stuff than a lot of YouTube creators. But what is kind of the difference between filming with presumably you had like a production team there versus making a YouTube video where you're writing, filming, and editing the video all yourself?
It's much scarier when you have a crew. So with this MTV thing, I just wrote it and hosted it. They had an actual director and an actual cinematographer and actual editors do it. And it's nerve-wracking because they sent me the final cut today, and it goes out tomorrow. And I was like, oh, wow, this is what it looks like. I didn't really know because I'm not seeing what it looks like through the camera. I'm not seeing what it looks like on the computer while it's being edited together. I am much more comfortable, and this is something that I think I need to get over, but I'm much more comfortable having control of everything. It's one of the things I like about YouTube, and I think it's one of the reasons that a lot of people are drawn to YouTube is that it's wholly yours. Again, like it's something that represents you, and you have a say in everything because you're doing everything generally. And even with a thing that I love to do is how can I make something look incredible for the least amount of money? I think the most expensive video I've ever made on Vsauce 3 that like wasn't a branded piece or anything like that cost maybe $3,000. And that was the most expensive video I've ever made.
That's not even far off from what I spend. Yeah.
Really?
It seems like a lot, but I would say, you know, it does seem like a lot, but in terms of like video production, if we go into that world, it's really very little. That's like the cost of one person. But, you know, we make a whole entire thing. And it's just about being smart with how you film and being clever with the resources that you have. I never want to have a lot of money to spend because I don't know how I would spend it. When you're limited in what you can use, then you have to be really creative in how you use it.
I never fully appreciated the excessiveness of some of these TV and movie, film shoots until I saw Casey Neistat's video on when he filmed his Samsung commercial.
Oh yeah,
what was it on? It was for the Oscars, I think, right?
Do What You Can't video.
Oh yeah, that one. Yeah, and it was a pretty simple shot. It was one main shot in like the parking lot with the wet ground, lights in the background, etc. And he had like a good 100 people there. It just seems so inefficient, and it kind of makes me realize how we're hearing all about how everyone's switching over to new media and online entertainment just because it's such a better bang for your buck. For
I mean, it's generally less expensive, but I mean, part of the model is when traditional media is not stuck, I shouldn't say that, it makes it sound bad, but there's the union model where, you know, when you're working on a set, you have a prop master. I can't touch the prop. Like if there's a prop on the other table that I need to use in the shot, I can't get it. He has to get it for me or she has to get it for me and give it to me. And then once I'm done with it, they take it back and put it back on that table. If you need to move a stand, there's a person whose specific job is moving that stand. And is it excessive? Probably, but it's also structured that way so you have people with jobs.
You know, Ren was telling us about one shoot that they were doing for Sam and Nico's new YouTube Red series. And they'd forgotten to hire a playback. I'm not sure the exact job role name, but they'd forgotten to hire someone who could play back the video after. So in order to watch what they had just shot, Sam had to like record the actual live preview on the camera and then watch it on his phone after to make sure that they got what they needed. That seems crazy.
Yeah, it's part of the process. But that's what I love. Because one of my favorite things to do is when people ask me like, "Oh, how much did that video cost?" I'm like, "Oh, it cost $1,000." And like, "Oh, well, how many people made it?" And I was like, 2. Me and the cinematographer. And they're like, "Wow, that's impressive." That's one of my favorite things. It's just it's changing people's expectations, which I think is what we try and do anyway, especially with informational, educational content. There's that notion that it's going to be boring and very dry. But I think we all create, hopefully, videos that are accessible and exciting. And that's what has led this trend of education being so impactful, especially on digital, is that it becomes an experience. It becomes something that you can enjoy, that's pleasurable. Even if you're not that interested in the topic, it's still an exciting narrative that you get to go on.
I just had this thought. You have less people touching your video than I do. Why is it like a choice to have such a lean production for Vsauce?
It is. One is I don't like spending money. And the second is that I think, and this could change over time, but I like the fact that it's mine. And it really is a representation of what I want and what I want to create. Would I love to have like a researcher or somebody like that? Yes. Would I be able to make videos much more quickly? Probably. But I haven't gotten to the point yet where I'm comfortable with that. And I think I will have to at some point, especially the more I try to do outside of Vsauce, the more I'll need help with Vsauce. But for the time being, I love just being able to do everything myself because it pushes you. Like I want to find what my limit is, and I haven't hit that point yet. So maybe when I finally find out what that ceiling is, I'll try and get help, but probably both psychological and production help. But for the time being, I don't know. I like it being mine.
You get to learn through it as well. If you have the more people you have helping you, the less you are learning and growing as a person as well. I found that's how I felt when I had one bit of help writing the script, and I ended up rewriting the entire thing just because I was like, this is not my words, and I feel like I haven't learned through this process, so I just completely changed it. I felt bad for that, but it was just a learning experience that I can't help people writing my scripts for me.
And it takes time, and I think this is the part that's difficult is the time aspect. Even though it takes me a month to make a video, once the video's made and like I'm editing it, I'm like, it has to come out tomorrow. There's no deadline. It's just me imposing this on myself. And when it comes to working with others, there is a learning curve, and it takes them time to get up to speed, especially if it is trying to understand how you speak or how you think, or it's not going to happen the first time. But I think, and I have this problem too, I'm just like, well, it would have been faster if I did it myself. But if we iterate on that and it replicates enough times, then they get better. But having the patience to get to that point is always an uphill battle.
Yeah, what we've come to now, like I'm still working with this guy. He's great. He's an engineer and animator, which is just a second me. But what we do now is he prepares a PowerPoint with like a list of facts with like references and everything. And I can kind of pick and choose what kind of subject matter I want to go through for that particular video. And that's super helpful because it kind of reduces the time I spend trawling through Google or whatever, wherever, trying to find suitable references. And it kind of keeps my creative side the same.
See, my thing is, as my budget has increased, as the channel grows, I've just progressively had someone take over my least favorite parts. So like I started with the audio editing, which is my least favorite thing because I hate hearing my own voice. And then I moved to thumbnail design because I'm atrocious at it because I have absolutely no design experience. Then fact checking because I got a couple of things wrong. So now that's a regular thing. And now I'm even doing some animating, and I find it lets me concentrate on, I personally think that I'm best at writing and research. So it lets me concentrate on what I think my skills are while bringing in skilled people to do the things that they're skilled at.
Totally.
So let's talk Beme.
Okay.
So how did that come about?
Good question. So I've known Casey for about 8 years. I first met him because I worked with him on a project on this video, a documentary that we made about 8 years ago, and I was the editor on it. So that's how I kind of met him, and then we just kept in touch. Obviously, we were in similar circles for a while, and like in January or February of this year, he just kind of called me and was like, "Hey, dude, we're doing some stuff at Beme. I can't really talk too much about it now, but I want you to like come out and meet with me and the rest of the team and discuss." So I was like, sure. So in March, I flew out. I met with him and some folks here at Beme, and they told me what they're working on. And after the meeting, I was like, sweet, cool. So I'll start next week then. And then I came to New York, got an apartment, and yeah, and that's kind of how it went.
That's fast.
Oh yeah,
Fast is good. Like, how are you able to talk about what exactly the scope of your work there is and what the hell Beme actually is? Because I feel like the internet is dying to see what actually comes out of this.
Yeah, so not really. I mean, I can tell you my fancy title, which is Director of Production, and we're a media company. We're going to be launching video content and also apps. And that's really, I think, all I can say at the moment. But in a little while, it'll actually be online and able for everyone to see. But right now, we're just kind of experimenting and figuring out how it's actually going to look.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, we've seen you on the vlog, just like, I guess, dropping stacks on equipment. Is your day-to-day basically setting up for video production?
That's partially it. A large part of my job is figuring out the tone. What does it look like? What does it feel like? How does it sound? How do we create narratives that fit with what we're trying to do and kind of give it that perspective? But like Casey and I are the only two video dudes on the team. So it's a part of my job here is just to, obviously Casey's busy, so it's to keep that through line going and allow us to create what we're trying to create with a specific vision without it getting muddled in anything else. We're just trying to create the best product possible. And hopefully Casey and I will be able to succeed in that. And I'm just talking very generally, but yeah.
And is this going to be mostly a YouTube thing, or do you think this is going to kind of like melt into other media as well, TV and everything?
The focus right now is solely YouTube. That's our platform of choice, and it fits. I mean, one, we just love YouTube. It's given us our careers, but also it fits best with what we're trying to create.
Right.
This episode of Showmakers was made possible by Squarespace. Squarespace allows you to easily and quickly create a beautiful website or online store using their templates. It powers wendoverproductions.com, realengineering.net, and showmakers.fm because it just works. If you ever have an issue, they also have award-winning customer service 24/7. Squarespace's all-in-one platform makes it so that there's nothing to install, patch, or upgrade ever. And by going to squarespace.com/showmakers, you can get 10% off your first order from Squarespace. Once again, that's squarespace.com/showmakers for 10% off your first order. Well, as someone now kind of commuting between LA and New York, obviously those are kind of like the two big YouTube creator hubs. What is the difference you see in the kind of culture between the two places?
So I lived in New York for 10 years, and then I moved to LA and lived there for about a year and a half before coming back here. And the issue that we have in New York is that there are creators, but not very many of them. And once they get to a certain point, a lot of them seem to move to Los Angeles. The creator community in New York is a bit sparse, I would say. My experience, like within Google, just trying to when we were working at the YouTube space here in New York, it was always kind of a challenge to get people to come in. In LA, they're just everywhere. So it's a different community. I do find though that here people are more, I don't know, they're more separate, but I think because there are less of us here in New York, you feel closer to them even if you see them less frequently. Where in LA, there's just so many that it's harder. And also just the way LA is structured, it's just difficult to see people in general just because of distance and schedules. So there are more, but I actually find that I see YouTubers less in LA than I do in New York.
Mm-hmm. But what about the, more specifically, like the educational space? We've talked about on a couple of episodes how everyone's in Europe for that. I'm just thinking off the top of my head of like the channels, of the educational channels over 1 million subscribers. There's like the Vsauce channels, Minute Physics, and I'm sure I'm forgetting a ton. But the vast majority are in Europe. Is there any kind of challenge in being separated in a way from the rest of your genre?
I'm not sure. I don't particularly think so. I mean, I love experiencing other verticals. I think it's like one thing I love doing is if you look at my subscriptions on YouTube, there's some EDU YouTubers, but a lot of it are just varied. It'll be, like people like Corridor Digital or like even Lore DIY, like beauty and stuff like that, because I find it necessary and important to understand what everyone's doing on the platform, and you can use that as a learning tool to then inform your own content. If you just swim in one pool your whole life, you won't know what the water's like elsewhere. So I kind of enjoy that. And when it comes to in LA, I mean, it's nice. Luckily, I have Michael there, so I get to see him all the time, which is great. And like Derek from Veritasium lives in LA as well. And then you have people like Physics Girl, Diana, who lives in San Diego. So there's people not too far away. And I find myself, most of the times when I collaborate with other EDU YouTubers, it is from abroad. Like I did 2 videos with ASAP Science where we weren't even in the same place when we made them. I'm talking now with, in a nutshell, about doing a video, and we don't need to physically be in the same place because of the way their content is made. And I love that angle, though, because, again, it pushes you to be creative. When you don't have the person easily accessible to you, you have to then be really considerate and really out of the box when you figure out how to integrate them into the content that you and the other person are creating.
I think this is a continual challenge for Sam and I, too, being in 2 fairly small cities. I know my city is tiny compared to Edinburgh, anyways, of trying to collaborate with people and making it as seamless as possible. It's difficult when you're just starting out. I think our first collaboration together, which was like just before we both started like exploding in growth, it was literally just like, here's some other person to talk now. And it wasn't the most seamless experience in the world.
But I feel like in a way, like having really no YouTube community at all where I live and having that as your job, it's kind of lonely in a way, because I literally know 3 or 4 people in my city that are YouTubers, and that's only from YouTube events. And no one I regularly see in person has kind of the same job as me, which is why I personally would like to move somewhere eventually where there are other people doing the same thing, because it's hard to, I feel like it'd be easier to challenge yourself, easier to evolve when there are other people doing the same thing around you.
Yeah, I can see that, I think. I mean, that's one of the things I really appreciate about VidCon or events like that, where you get to see all these people that you respect or that you're friends with, and interact with them. But even, like I said, when I was living in LA, I really didn't see people all too much. And this is actually one of the things I didn't particularly care for in LA. And again, this doesn't mean it's the way it is. It's just my thinking on it, is that everyone was in the entertainment business. Everywhere you would go, the majority of people are in entertainment. And one of the things I love about New York is that nobody that I'm friends with here, outside of like Casey, does the same thing that I do. They all do something different. So when we hang out, I don't talk about my work. We just talk about life and other things like that. And it's a wonderful thing to experience, because you spend so much time as a creator living in your own world of, okay, this is my life and my world and everything revolves around me. And then you go outside of that, you're like, oh, there's other parts of life. Other people have emotions and feelings, and there's differences, which I like. But to go to the point of like loneliness, of course, I think creation is synonymous with being alone and with loneliness. Even if you do have an audience, you're still alone, because the content that you create is generally you creating it. And you put it out in the world, and then people watch it, but you're not there with them watching it. You can't go to a movie theater and sit down and see people watching your movie. That doesn't happen. So it is very lonely in general, I find.
That would be a really cool thing to do. I don't know. Surely someone is doing this, of actually just setting up a theater and having like a few people on YouTube try to make like the best thing they've ever made, and then previewing it at a theater. Is there someone doing this?
Yeah, it's there's a thing called Buffer Festival that Corey Vidal hosts in Toronto every year. And that's where it's like more like a film festival. There's a red carpet, and they have like a premiere and like a gala thing, and then there's showings. Like I'm always part of the science and education showing, and you premiere a video on a big screen with an audience that buys tickets to come see it. And that's really nice. And it's always nerve-wracking though, because I've never had to experience someone watching my video next to them. I remember I asked for this once, like in a vlog. I talked about how I was always curious to see what people's reactions were when they watched one of my videos, and people would then record themselves watching my videos and like post it on YouTube. And it was just so interesting to see where they made a little smirk, or maybe they laughed, or maybe they like winced a little bit, and what those moments were. Because analytics can only tell you so much. Yeah. It can show you engagement, but it can't show you emotion. And I thought that was just so curious.
I'd love to experience that festival. On the other hand, like we're now giving a shot at podcasting, and podcasting, you get there's barely any feedback, and I have no idea like what episodes are interesting, which episodes are not. The only things that you really hear are you see your downloads, and then you might get a couple comments, you might get a couple reviews, you might get a couple Twitter responses, but I have no good gauge on what episodes are captivating people so far. Whereas on YouTube, that's really easy, or easier, through watch time and, like, dislikes, comments in general. Of course, the commenters let you know what they think. And so even though, Casey Neistat talks about this a lot, YouTube is much more, there's much more response and back and forth on YouTube than really any other creation platform that I can think of.
Yeah, no, I mean, totally. That's why I think we always use, and it becomes a natural thing to say, is that YouTube is a community, not only for the creators that are making content for it, but the people that are consuming it. That's why the comment system exists in, maybe not the best form, but it exists, and it allows people to be a part of the creation of whatever the content was. And, you have things, I believe, are you both on Patreon?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's like, you're taking it one step further, where the people who enjoy your content are helping make it a reality. And what other platform really allows you to do that? I mean, the beautiful thing about YouTube, and we can talk to the ends of the earth about how the adpocalypse is affecting people, but what other social media platform shares revenue with you, the person posting? Twitter doesn't give me money when I tweet. Facebook doesn't give me money when I post a picture of myself. but YouTube does. And it's just such a unique experience that is really based on the community that's part of it. The reason that feature exists is because there's people there to watch the content and engage with it.
We had this exact conversation with Ren last week. It goes even further than that of Facebook and Twitter, whoever don't pay you, but they do the exact opposite. You have to pay them in order to promote you, whereas YouTube promotes you for free.
Yeah.
Just like all the creators are kind of working together for advancement, YouTube and creators are working together because everyone's in the same boat.
100%.
A rising tide raises all ships.
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
Wisdom. Right. Yeah, but I wanted to say something earlier as well with the watching, people watching it live. I completely forgot that I actually had this experience in my hometown, which is one of the really, really cool things about Galway. I'm from the west of Ireland, a little city called Galway. Everyone apparently knows about it now because of Ed Sheeran's new song. But it's a really artsy little city, like only a population of 70,000 or something. But they have this thing called Little Cinema, and they invite film creators to come and just preview their videos. And some, like, the quality goes from like really, really low to really, really high. Like, you get all sorts of different creators. Like, some people come from like across Europe just to preview the video that they were working on because they don't get this experience anywhere else. And I showed my video on the Burj Khalifa there. And what I wasn't expecting, people laughed at certain points. And I still can't even remember what part they laughed at. And it's like, it was a really, really bizarre experience. Like you said, that's something that you don't get from YouTube analytics, of the emotion, the range of emotions people get while watching your videos. I mostly saw boredom because it was not the target audience. It's the beauty of YouTube. You can get your niche of people that are interested in obscure engineering topics, but it was still a really cool experience to have. I'd like to see that become a much more, like, I've never heard of this buffer festival thing, but I'd love to see more things like that. I assume that's only going to become more of a popular thing as YouTube grows. I only see YouTube becoming more and more prevalent in pop culture and everything else.
That should totally be part of YouTube's, event repertoire when they go out to different cities and do creator days and stuff. That seems like a perfect platform, perfect place to do that with local creators, show off your stuff, blah, blah, blah.
I mean, in my mind, it makes so much sense. Buffer Festival, I think, came out of the need of, hey, we have all these conventions celebrating the community of creators and YouTubers, but we don't have any that actually show their work. Like, you don't know who they are unless you already know their videos. So let's create an environment, an experience where you can watch other people's videos that you might not know of, and you're there to appreciate the content just as much as you are the creator of it.
Thank you very much for being on the show, Jake. It was a pleasure talking to you. It would be great to have you on the show again when, maybe if Beme launches again, we can talk about it in more detail. And yes, just thank you.
Of course. Thank you guys so much. This was great.
You're welcome.
Yeah, we really appreciate it. And good luck with all your different verticals, as we call them.
All about them verticals.